welcome back. Today, we're going to be looking through the eyes of a pro gamer, though in this context, programmer actually might work. From the Homestory Cup Finals, Game 7, Homestory Cup 17. There's been plenty, and they just get better every time. It's innovation. Oftentimes, well, in the past has been considered the best Terran or the best player in the world. In 2018, he's kind of had to give up the throne to Maru. But we're in Game 7 against Sue, the man who's lost more GSL finals than anyone else has been in, which is quite an accomplishment, and a second place at BlizzCon as well. I don't know what that does to a man, but Sue has made it to the finals. But we're looking at innovation. Known for nearly perfect execution, I think, especially since he really came to... I almost wanted to say came to power. Powered up might be another one. But with Heart of the Swarm, and then since then he's always been one of the Terran players you look to, like, this is the style Terrans are going to play. He defines how you're supposed to play Terran. Of course, once again, in 2018, that is not quite as much the case, and he's checking for a proxy hatch there. We're going to be looking through his eyes. We're going to try to see how the game goes. Early on, I'm going to try to break down the build, see what he's looking for and why, and what decisions he makes, and then we'll just see where the game takes us. I was able to catch most of the finals and some of Homestory Cup live, but it's always different to watch through what these players are seeing in the first person. I think it's more intense that way as well. A second gas already, before the factory starts, after a command center first, by the way. This is 16-bit, an incredibly defensive map. The back pocket means essentially, as long as you get some basic scouting done, if Sue just goes for an all-out, like a Ravager all-in, proxy hatch, which you saw him scout for, kind of cheese, well, that innovation might just die. He hasn't scouted, he's gone for a command center first. He has literally no units until the 2.5-minute mark. And he's going to be teching up directly behind. So, on a map like this, one of the big decisions for a Terran player to make, and it is a decision nowadays with how the game plays out, bio or mech. And on a map where you can cover a lot of angles early on, the big weakness of mech is both powering up and transitioning. But when you can get a command center first, and essentially be well defended on the ground with minimal units, then mech becomes a lot more of an attractive option as compared to going bio. And bio also suffers from a later game weakness. Now that, if you can get to Ghosts and Liberators, but we're talking late game, not end game. We're up against Ultras or Vipers or Broodlords, and you don't quite have that unit composition. Mech doesn't have that issue as much if you have the economy and have the infrastructure. And I'm spoiling it a little bit. I know innovation ends up going for mech in this match, but he makes it look as mobile and as effective as bio out on the map. Alright, so a Hellion opener, and still no scouting, by the way. This is kind of the level of respect. I would recommend, if you're a lower level player, like Diamond or below, I would still send an SCV out. We're playing at such a high level right now that these players are so good, and they've played for so much money on the line, and this is the tournament on the line right now. Both of them know the other is probably not going to be proxying a barracks or building a bunch of roaches. It's not a guarantee, but the likelihood is they're going to fall back to their strengths, and I think the strengths for both players are in the later game macro rather than some cheeky build or all-in. We'll leave that to Maru. But an Armory's on the way, a Raven as well. And this is really fully... Now he sees the creep spread. With creep spread out that far, that means several queens have been invested in. Several queens mean there are not a bunch of roaches coming across the map. There's not a huge Baneling bust, more than likely. So innovation gets to be the aggressor. Already starting, and there's the commitment to mech. An Armory this early almost always means we're going to have some commitment to mech, but the upgrade's already kicked off. 100% going that direction. A third base. So a very greedy build, but the size of the map also means you got to contain Sue. You got to contain the Zerg. You got to put some damage on. Because if you let a Zerg get to 70, 80 drones and lair tech, well, there's almost nothing you can do as a Terran besides just sit back and try to figure out how to deal with it. Some Hellbats in the front, trying to get on top of the Queens, do as much splash damage as possible. He's let the Hellbats in the main do some damage as well. He's trying to split the Queens up. Because the Queens are really the only thing viably defending here. Looks like the medevac was picked off in the main, going into the main mineral line. The drones being harassed is going to be a major theme of this match and a major part of fighting against the Zerg with Mech. Once again, if you just let them get to a lair and 80 drones, you're going to have a bad time. But the worker count, after all that, still 60 for Sue, but 50 for Innovation with mules to back it up. I accidentally... Spoilers. That's what the map looks like. Extra production online. He's already built some tech labs. I'm not sure if he built those. I think he built those with the starport and the barracks. That's another big part of high-level Terran, is having your add-ons ready, whether they're tech labs or reactors. Being able to get that production ramped up a little bit quicker can make all the difference. Because if you spend another 20 seconds building a tech lab, that's another round of Zerglings, or round of drones, or upgrade finishing, or seconds count. And they can count for, they can be the difference between 30 drone kills and none. That's an extreme example, but we've got a Thor drop follow-up from Innovation. Now, if you told someone this in Wings of Liberty, they would think either you were visionary or crazy. But the Thor drop makes a lot of sense if you already have Hellions and you've seen a commitment to those Zerglings. Thank you. Right now, Innovation knows as long as he can deal with counterattacks and run-bys and all that, there's really not going to be that much that can directly deal with a Thor attack. So a Thor drop becomes it's kind of like a double drop with medevacs. Well, it is a double drop. There are 2 medevacs and 2 Thors. But it's just another way to keep the Zerg contained, to make it so Innovation can continue to build up his infrastructure, get his upgrades. It's expensive to get double mech upgrades and maintain this production. But with the Thor drop, that means Hydras have to stay at home, Queens have to stay at home. Zerglings can't really counterattack because both Hellions are being produced and threatening to run into some mineral lines. And these are some depots in front from Innovation. That's to block, well, to really screw with the AI of units. If you just attack move, some of your units might end up hitting the depots instead of siege tanks or Hellions or whatever's behind it. So really now just setting up any potential counterattacks to be shut down. Hydra's committed on the left. Innovation realizes maybe he has some time to bring the Thors in on the right. And can I get some real music here? What are we listening to? It's a little better. High impact mode used. High impact mode only affects the anti-air attack for the Thors, which allows him to do more single target damage against especially things like Overlords. But it removes the splash damage and the extra damage to light. So pretty much, unless you're up against mutas, or honestly, pretty much just mutas, high impact mode is more useful. But it does not affect the ground attack. I do think it makes the Thors look cooler, so you might want to just do that, even if there are no air units. But, and everybody knows, looking cooler, look good, play good, as a great man once said. Oh my god, it's the same music. I give up.
Add-on complete.
Already Vikings on the way. Innovation taking another base. He's realized that Sue is committing to a ground-based army. He's not going to be going straight up to Hive. He's got the Hydras. You see the Infestation Pit, which could mean Swarm Host and or Hive, and it will probably be both eventually. The Hellbats coming in, but Innovation, what is the worker count? 80 SCVs. 80 SCVs. He's been untouched. But he's managed to contain Sue while getting 4 bases and 80 SCVs, getting +2 attack. It's just partially the size of the map here. It's just the amount of space between each of them that kind of allows you to get away with this. But if you don't play to the map, you're just not going to be a top-level player. And Innovation is definitely doing that right now.
Research complete.
Another group of Hellions out here. Sue's creep has been kind of cut back. Not really shut down, but cut back, I think is the way I would describe it. Some Hydras coming down for Sue. Innovation's starting to reach towards 200 supply, and he doesn't have super late game tech besides upgrades. Just reaching towards a max out, a lot of tanks, plenty of Hellions. But the question is, do you want to commit out on the map? Do you actually bring some units out? Okay. What about Brood War music? How about that? Hellions on the left and on the right. It looks like this is the first time the swarm hosts are going to be revealed. But just targeting down drones, having those upgrades on the Hellions means drones go down much easier, because honestly, it is quite difficult for Zerg to keep up in upgrades, especially the Carapace upgrades, which are the only things that affect drones. It's the same. It's the same. Same music. I give up. But 12 drones go down with those Hellions, and he's essentially trading minerals here. With Mech, the real limiting factor is gas. To get those much stronger units, like Liberators, Thors, tanks, Hellions are your throwaway. They're essentially the Zerglings or the Marines of a Terran player, but you don't need any medevacs with these Marines. You can just run the Hellions by, and they're going to continue to do damage. You can even kill Hydras, and he's going to work on that now. The Infernal Pre-ignited the blue flame, allowing him to do extra damage to light. Su will come down to defend his base, and he's starting to build up a bank. Another round of Locusts come in. The Hellbats, he's trying to eat the damage, but a good split out of Su means some tanks are going to fall. Innovation says, well, I'm going to lose some tanks, but I'm definitely not going to lose the war. Focusing on his Hellion micro instead of worrying too much about those swarm hosts. The Hellions coming in, and what you don't see every day, which is swarm hosts being roasted by Hellions. Banelings coming by. The Banelings do a pretty sizable amount of damage to the Hellions. The Hellions still coming in. Innovation is still maxed out. And when you're maxed out, remember, it's the gas, not the minerals. You sink your minerals into command sensors. In the Hellions, you just keep throwing them at them. And maybe the first run-by does very little. You kill 3 drones. The second run-by, you kill 3 drones. The third, the fourth. But if the 5th run-by gets in, kills 30 drones, that's all you need. That means the Zerg player no longer has the ability to continue rebuilding their army, and the Mech army can start powering through. That's when trades matter, where you might fight back against a Locust wave, lose a couple tanks, but you can keep pushing forward because they don't have the economy or the production to follow it up. So that's why Innovation is constantly on top of this. It looks like a Liberator on the left side, a Liberator on the right, just constantly harassing while focusing down the center. He realizes there's not enough Zerg here committed, and he's dragged out of the way by some of those Liberators. Just pushing through the creep. This is a little ambitious out of Innovation. He doesn't have that many Hellbats in front to tank the damage for the tanks, ironically enough. So Su will... Okay, well, he's not going to hold. The Vikings hit the deck. No smart servos yet for Innovation, right? No, a double Liberator in the back. The Liberators could be a good part of the army, but all it takes is one misposition out of Su. There's just a cloud looming over his head right now. Honestly, until we see Broodlords, even with Vipers, all Su has to do is be out of position once, and then Innovation can siege up and completely destroy a base, and that's the beginning of the end. We're still in a position where both players have money, still plenty of bases on the field. Innovation is constantly, he's threatening him, but Su is defending on every side, but at no point has it felt like Su's coming across the map and being able to do any aggression. This is just continuously keeping Su back in his base, anchored on his side of the map. And once again, Mech is usually the more powerful army, assuming you don't have Broodlords, you don't have Vipers. Looks like those are starting now. Corruptors are on the way. He wants something to deal with these Liberators, but 22 drones now have gone down. Hi, Sacco, no tracking on the way. Thank you. Another wave of Swarm Hosts. We're getting to the point where Innovation... Swarm Hosts need to get a few Locust waves off in order to be worth not necessarily their cost, but their supply. Because Swarm Hosts are pretty heavy in the supply count right now. Is it 3 or 4? It's 4, right? No, 3 for a Swarm Host. Okay, but still, pretty heavy in the supply. And if you have too many Swarm Hosts as part of your army, you just can't have much of a ground force. So if the Locusts aren't combined in, you're not going to be killing a Mech army. Another wave of Locusts forced out on the left side. Innovation going to trade a couple Hellbats. That's nothing. Okay. Stop it. Oh my god.
Upgrade
Well,
complete.
it somehow made the volume louder, but I think it's the same song. Half the Swarm hosts have used their Locust Sioux force to retreat on the left. The tanks have taken back the creep. And without creep, Sioux can't really hope to fight. He's gonna need creep or Vipers, ideally both. But now Innovation is committing most of his forces to this attack. A handful of Hellions on the bottom right side, but almost everything else. Here come the Vipers. Some Blinding Clouds to start. Parasitic Bomb on the Vikings. Another wave of Locusts come in. The Hydras at the back. The Banelings rolling through. Innovation losing some of his tanks. A great Blinding Cloud at the back, but the Liberators continuing to shell from above.
Spin Geyser exhausted.
Sioux may win that battle. Another round of Hellions are coming in. And throughout this, how many workers? 76, 78, 79, and counting drones killed. Bringing Sioux down to 56. He can never really get his economy going. And now the bank is not there for Sioux to rebuild. This has felt almost like a proxy war the entire time. Innovation has... That was the first real committed attack Innovation's done. He did kind of an attack to the south, but he didn't commit most of his units. But the attack on the left side, Innovation is winning this war without essentially firing a shot. Okay, there are definitely shots fired, but he hasn't been attacking bases directly. He's been attacking the drones, and just the threat of the army moving out and getting close enough to attack has been enough to keep Sioux in this really precarious position. Every time, now this is the best case scenario for mech is fighting away from your bases. You don't want to be backed up against a wall, backed up against your planetaries or your production, because then you might not have the chance to rebuild. But if you fight out on the map and you trade out on the map, by the time the Zerg puts an army back together, so have you. You've got another round of tanks or Liberators or whatever you need. So fighting on the map is the ideal scenario. Of course, it'd be great to be on top of their bases, but just having some buffer between you and your production means it's going to be very difficult, especially with a bunch of command centers at the back, orbitals, mules. You can afford to lose a base or two, but if you don't even have to do that, you can continue building. And he's building kind of the brawler mech army. A wave of Locusts shut down at the north. But now Innovation, I mean, he's not banking up money, and he's not building super late game units. He's not building Ravens. Well, ranged Liberators, I guess, could be considered pretty late game.
Oh,
but no Ghosts
now
are being
I have
combined
your
in.
attention.
And I'm just going to say the word Battlecruiser, even though I don't actually think Battlecruisers would be a great choice. But Battlecruisers, the Liberator's just incessant. And now you see this. He realizes the army's on the map, so he's defending. Brings out, and he kind of sits back, but he arcs out around Hellions, Liberators. And then when the army, when the harass is shut down and units have been brought back to defend, that's when Innovation starts to set up for a real push. He realizes, okay, I've got some space, I can move out, take another position on the map. But if you're a 6-base Terran, you're maxed out with money in the bank, you don't have an obligation to move out. You might have the initiative, but by no means is Innovation forced to attack here. If he can take the fight and win the fight, I'm sure he will. And he feels that's definitely something he can do. But now he sees the army coming together. No Broodlords yet out of Sioux. We're not even sure if there's a Greater Spire on the field, but Innovation has been making some anti-air. Ooh, a wave of Locusts. Sioux with a great fight coming in from all flanks there. He's got a Viper, but it looks like Innovation is killing drones with the Liberator once again. A great fight out of Sioux means Innovation going to be driven back. He came out onto the creep into the army. That is the big danger, but a Liberator still doing damage to the south. Innovation not even looking at it. He doesn't even care. That should tell you, the fact that Innovation hasn't even looked at that Liberator, he queued it up, he set it up a minute ago, and fire and forget. Just the existence of the Liberator there has helped to keep Sioux away from his front door, away from actually pressuring his bases and his production. So despite losing a fight, Innovation still fine. Rebuilds 195 supply. The worker count in favor of a mech Terran. He's lost a grand total of 0 SCVs. 0. How does that even... You think at some point you'd accidentally send an SC... He's lost 0 SCV. It looks like that's about to change here. But that tells you the kind of game we're playing, where in 20 minutes, Innovation has lost 0. It looks like these might be the first SCV kills. Oh my god. He's killed 115 to 0. That is... I think that explains the game better than I ever can. How much pressure he's putting on Sue. And it's not like he's turtled up. He's on 6 bases. He finally loses. Wait a second. 9 SCVs just died. Is this counter wrong? That's definitely wrong. I don't know. Something's bugged out. Okay, SCVs have definitely died. The replay's bugged. Never mind. I take it back. He's lost like 20 or 30. But he's definitely killed a lot more. Now this is Sue coming out. So much damage. It's still... Innovation hasn't really been keeping that much track. A planetary fall. Sue's fighting back. And these swarm hosts, rip Rocket Raccoon. These swarm hosts start to add up over time. If the swarm hosts are allowed to continually be aggressive as opposed to defensive, if they're allowed to continue knocking on the door, eventually they're going to break through. Innovation is forced back for a time. He loses, well, it's not a key base, and having 61 SCVs just frees up more army supply. But he's tended... Now, another thing, he hasn't rebuilt any Ravens. The lack of ghosts is understandable when you have this kind of mech army. But no Ravens at all, not even for anti-armor missile, or even some interference matrix. Sue coming in, the tank's already sieged. The swarm hosts getting a little ahead of themselves. But another Liberator sieged up on the left. And somehow this armor, like, this is the danger. Now Innovation is winning fights on Sue's side of the map. That goes from bad to worse. On the middle of the map, Sue has some time to rebuild, but if he loses a fight on his creep, well, that's a base gone at the very least. The Corruptors spray through one of the command centers.
We are at maximum supply.
Hellions can take... Like, at this point, you're just throwing away units. Mostly for position, get some drone kills, but he can rebuild. Innovation still has plenty of economy. Oh my god. Oh, jeez. Oh. And he's microing this one. Some of the times, Innovation just kind of throws units out there. 30. Oh, no. Oh, his hopes and dreams just went up in flames. It's now 20 drones. Oh, my God.
Ready to raise some hell. Ready to plunder.
Innovation has just completely knocked Sue's legs out from underneath him.
Now I have your attention.
Thank you.
Glad you still enjoy.
All he needs to do, if you kill that many drones, all you need to do is win one fight. Or trade once or twice. Because there's nothing to match you anymore. There's nothing to catch up. Sue either has to rebuild workers, which, get this, not units, or rebuild units, which means he'll have no economy. And eventually he'll start losing fights, and eventually he'll get broken. No Broodlords throughout this, because Innovation has just put on so much pressure. Sue has never had the time, the space, or the economy to build the Death Ball. Innovation wins Homestory Cup with that's how to play mech. He did a very minimalist harass early against a relatively greedy Zerg with the double prong Hellbats. Got a Raven out, did some auto turret harass, and then with some well-timed harass and the Thor drop follow-up was also a big part of that, I feel. Just the Thor drop follow-up and managing that, keeping Hydras back. Pretty much you're buying space until you can get your tanks out, and your tanks are what allow you to comfortably have a third and even go to a fourth. And Innovation wasn't shy. He built the fourth on location at the fourth base. He's getting more SCVs than a Zerg player off the back of just some very precise harass at the right place at the right time. Some just hitting all the pressure points, really. The acupuncture Terran. It never felt at any point. I mean, I'm trying to think of a point where it felt like Innovation was even at a threat. I guess maybe when Innovation lost some tanks and Sue was knocking towards the front. The problem was that Innovation already had other bases. It wasn't like holding the middle base was a key part of his plan at that point. So that was about the closest Sue ever came to actually threatening him. But, well. GG. Well played. And, Zerg players all around will be feeling that one. And Sue takes second place. Consistency is key. The total drones killed 157. Only 7 SCVs. That's not accurate, right? Like, maybe it was friendly fire. I don't know. But 157 drones killed.